I love the Nintendo Switch, and yeah, it's not without its faults, Joy-Con drift, and a kinda short battery life, especially for V1 models. But I'll tell you one thing I love about the Switch: indie games in the comfort of my own bed. There's nothing quite like getting comfy, playing video games while I use YouTube or anime as background noise while I lose myself in another one of my silly little video games. Ah, the simple joys of life. Do you know what else I love? Singing the praises of a video game and sharing my gushing with the rest of the internet. So with that being said, and as the title of this video says, hi internet, it's Nate, and today I'm going to recommend 3 indie games that I feel are underrated and definitely deserve more attention. And I know they're not Fedora Core, they're not the people that wear plaid Pendleton shirts with cool indie game t-shirts underneath them. They're games that are on the Switch that I personally never see anyone really talk about or mention when suggesting indie games to other people, and frankly, I think everyone's missing out. The order that these games are in are based on how complex I feel that they are. So let's go ahead and get started with game number 1. SteamWorld Dig 2. Oddly enough, as I'm writing this, I'm seeing that this game is getting a 3rd entry in the series, and that this game, SteamWorld Dig 2, was free for 1 day only, so I'm sorry if you were uninformed of that news until now. But I find it funny that SteamWorld Dig 2 got all this press and hype as I'm calling it an underrated gem, which, to be fair, it still is. SteamWorld Dig 2 is a game you can play without having to really know that much about the story and get the same amount of enjoyment out of it. However, hypocrite alert. I did actually enjoy the first SteamWorld Dig, and if you want to play the series in order, I would say it's a lot easier to go from 1 to 2, but way more difficult to take a step back and start from 2 to 1, as number 1 is a much simpler game, and 2 takes that foundation from the first game established and improves it exponentially. You hear that, image-informed games? I love you. Whoa, where did that come from? Anyway, SteamWorld Dig 2 is a Metroidvania mixed with a hint of Terraria. You dig to find minerals, sell the minerals to upgrade your equipment such as your pickaxe, your item capacity, or your lamp. Speaking of the lamp, your character has a lamp with a gauge on the left of the screen, and when that meter is depleted the lights go out, and creepiness ensues. It's spooky, right? One thing I like a whole lot is that the game has a couple of adjustable parameters, such as turning off markers, showing where your next destination is, which makes the game feel a bit more like a Metroidvania. The other part of the Metroidvania label is in the fact that you're constantly upgrading and powering up your character as you dig deeper through the mines. The game has a great vibe that is constantly being fueled by hip-hop influenced music. SteamWorld Dig 2 really hits its stride once you upgrade to the grapple hook. The movement gets so much smoother, and it's always satisfying even if you're goofing off with the grapple hook and jumping around everywhere. If you're feeling the need to try out more Metroidvania games after playing Metroid Dread, but maybe you don't want something as punishing as, say, Hollow Knight, I feel that this game is still a bit punishing as you lose your items when you die in the mines, but it's definitely not as harsh as Hollow Knight is. I never see anyone really talk about this game, and it deserves your time. It only takes about 7 hours to beat. The game does what it needs to do in a pretty nice time frame. I love when a game respects my time and makes sure that the experience doesn't have a lot of filler. There are extra things to do to reach 100%, and that takes around 14 hours. And fun fact, this game is also released on the 3DS and plays incredibly well on there too. The regular price is $20 on the eShop, but often but sporadically goes on sale for around $8 on the eShop, which to me is a really great price. The other games in the series get deeply discounted as well, and in my experience, Image and Form overall makes quality games with their own touch of originality. Let's get on to the next game. Into the Breach. Can we just talk about how awesome of a name Into the Breach is? Something about the game's title alone lets me know that I'm about to take part in an experience that's just profound. Something design oriented. Into the Breach is a game developed by Subset Games, the same developers that brought the indie classic FTL, Faster Than Light. And for those uninitiated to what FTL is, the game won both Excellence in Design and the Audience Award and was a finalist for Suma's McNally Grand Prize Awards for the 15th Annual Independent Games Festival. It was also named the Best Debut Title at the 2013 Game Developers' Choice Awards. So with that being said, FTL have proved Subset Games to be a force to be reckoned with. FTL, along with the indie titles Spelunky and The Binding of Isaac, are considered to be key games that launched the concept of roguelike games, which is still popular in some of the biggest indie games in recent years. Dead Cells, Hades, Slay the Spire. But let's get back to Into the Breach, because this can turn into an overview of roguelikes if I keep talking about this. One of the biggest traits that I love about Into the Breach is its accessibility. When you look at FTL for even a moment, you'll feel overwhelmed overwhelmed immediately. I mean really, look at this screen, there's a lot going on. And that's not to say that it's bad, because I actually really love FTL, and I'd love them to please port it to iPhones and not keep it exclusive to iPad subset, please listen to me. But Into the Breach takes a much more simplistic approach to tactics and decision making. Into the Breach is set in the far future where humanity fights against an army of giant monsters collectively called the Vec. To combat them, the player controls soldiers that operate giant mechs that can be equipped with a variety of weapons, armor, and other equipment. The game uses a turn-based combat system, allowing the player to coordinate the attacks of their team in response to enemy moves and actions that serve to telegraph their attacks. Should the player lose any scenario, either due to their 3 mechs being disabled, losing their power grid, or failing to protect a specific target for the scenario, the player has an option to send one of the pilots back in time prior to the start of the first mission, effectively starting a new game, retaining their current experience and abilities to give an edge in the next battle. The simple things begin to have more depth as you continue to play this game. You begin to notice that you can make enemies hit their own comrades, cause them to run into hazards, or even block the spawning of new enemies on the grid. Each new mission area has its own randomly generated map, with different terrain along differing bonus tags to net yourself bonuses to do things such as buy supplies, regenerate your power grid levels, get unique items like weapons or upgrades via time pods. There are a few accessibility options that deserve some recognition as well. There's an easy, normal, or hard mode indicator, which is always welcome, and in each separate mission there's an option to reset your entire turn if you feel that a decision you've made will negatively affect your enemy's follow-up turn. The feeling when you fail to see an enemy on the map and realize that the repercussions would have been massive make the reset option something I feel is essential, as the game gives you a chance, but you only get one reset per each map, which I feel is incredibly fair. The music of Into the Breach gives off a sense of urgency, but allows you to sit and think through situations. The music really gets my gears turning and thinking of the outcome. This is one of those games that while it did receive its own fair share of hype and great reviews, I feel that it was overshadowed by Subset's previous game because of how much of a landmark FTL was and still is to this day. This is one game I truly don't hear about as often, and it's a shame because Into the Breach does so much with so little and truly nails exactly what it's going for. Its regular price on the eShop is $15, but often goes on sale for half off at $7.50 at around Christmas and usually ends on New Year's. Definitely add this to your wishlist and wait for the sale because at that low it's a must buy. Okay, and let's get on with game number 3. Tangle Deep. Tangle Deep is something I'm genuinely having difficulty describing properly because of just how vast the definition of this game is. Okay, let's try it. Tangle Deep is a dungeon crawling RPG roguelike with SNES inspired aesthetics. One look at a screenshot and you'll be instantly reminded of SNES RPG greats like Chrono Trigger or Secret of Mana. Tangle Deep setting takes place in a world where people have lived deep underground surrounded by forests, rivers, and crystal mines. Our main female character has a sense of adventure to explore and learn about the depths of the world and reach a world that no one has ever seen, a place called Tangle Deep. The main character wants to go there and find their own answers to questions left unanswered. Tangle Deep plays more like a mystery dungeon game such as Pokemon Mystery Dungeon or Shiren the Wanderer. There's a deep class system complete with their own upgrades and ways to mix and match different classes to make your own unique character. It's incredibly easy to just start a file, assign yourself a class, and get to exploring. Your character will learn skills, have to manage resources to heal themselves, and make sure that they can survive the depths of the labyrinth. There are different types of loot you'll find in the labyrinth. Weapons, healing items, buffing items, armor, and there are special chests you'll find called Pandora's Box. These boxes can be opened for free, but there is a cost to them. You'll get XP, job points, gold, and occasionally legendary items or other loot. However, one should be wary of how many boxes, if any, they open. Each time a Pandora's box is opened, the difficulty level of enemies on the floor it was opened on will increase. The difficulty level of enemies on every floor will also increase, but to a lesser extent. There are a total of 24 Pandora's boxes in the game, tripling to 72 if the appropriate game difficulty modifier is selected. Inversely, one can choose to disable them entirely, which brings me to my absolute favorite part of this game. Because of how cool of a dungeon crawler it actually is, there are so many ways to customize the way that you can experience Tangle Deep. It's incredibly deep, no pun intended, or maybe it is. For starters, there are 3 different modes to choose from when you start a new save file. Heroic mode, Adventure mode, and Hardcore mode. Heroic mode is the way the game is intended to be played, and is recommended for people with roguelike experience. If you reach 0 HP, the game ends. However, town progress, unlocked jobs, and banked items and money will be saved, ready to be picked up by the next character you make. Adventure mode is for roguelike beginners. If you reach 0 HP, you will return to town and be able to continue your adventure as that character at the cost of half your money, unspent job points, and XP progress. Hardcore mode is the hardest difficulty and recommended for veteran roguelike players who want a challenge. If you reach 0 HP, the game ends. Additionally, all traces of your adventure will be permanently erased, including unlocked jobs, feats, and bank goods. Adventure mode is what I use the most because in most cases of my own experience, permadeath feels a bit too punishing and almost makes it feel like I've wasted my time investing into it. I tend to use adventure mode as a way to figure out the inner workings of the game. Then I'll play heroic mode and challenge myself to see how far I can make it with the stakes being so high. Now that is a ton of fun.
But I'm not done yet!
This isn't the part that I wanted to talk about. There's a whole other level of fine-tuning the experience when you start a save file called game modifiers. There's some modifiers that can make the game easier, more challenging, or something more restricting. Here are what some easy modifiers can look like. Regenerate health out of combat, regenerate energy and stamina out of combat, and those two are the two I tend to have on. It gives the experience of dungeon crawling akin to something more like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, which is what happens in that game. You restore health when you're not in combat. Challenging modifiers are things like monsters regenerate health, all job point gain is halved, all monsters gain a champion power, monsters no longer drop gold, and I could see all these making the combat and experience much more tense and challenging, but personally it's just not for me. Some restricting modifiers are things like no Pandora's boxes, player and monster abilities can hit allies, or even triple the number of Pandora's boxes as I mentioned earlier. So if what I'm saying here makes you feel hyped to play this game, I highly recommend giving Tangle Deep a shot. The developer of the game is incredibly active on the subreddit r/TangleDeep too, so please send him some love if you enjoy the game. Tangle Deep normally runs around $20 on the eShop, but it goes on sale about 2 or 3 times a year for $10. It seems to always go on sale in January, so if you want it for $10, mark that wishlist and wait for that email from Nintendo. So there you have it, 3 hidden gems on the Nintendo Switch, but all 3 of these games are available on PC as well. I didn't notice this when picking these 3 games for this list, but all these games have something that's been a source of discourse in video games, and that's having modifiers and options available to make a game more accessible to a wider audience. Despite it being such a divisive issue, I'd like to tackle that topic in a later video because this has given me so many examples and it's something I'm genuinely passionate about. Anyway, these are 3 games I would also recommend at full price, but I'm a frugal gamer. So of course I'll try and find ways to get these games to you all at a lower price. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed the content, please leave a like as it helps my channel navigate the hellscape algorithm that youtube.com is on. Leave a comment if there's any hidden gems you feel don't get any love. And subscribe if you'd like to keep up with what I do. And as always, have a great day.